Hey everybody out in YouTube land. Welcome back to the channel. Starting off today with our current war continued research. That's as I've said, the topic that we're going to keep expanding on over here on YouTube. And starting with an old meme that I haven't brought up in a while because our good friend Nikola Tesla is at the heart of all of the memeology going on that matters in the world right now. And of course, as the channel has done over the past year or so, go to my YouTube page and kind of, especially ever since the beginning of this year, ever since January, all the V-Steganography story arc that gets us to today, following the white rabbit from last time around. If you haven't caught, not as many people caught my last video I did with the white rabbit symbolism all over it. But that's hardly the most interesting thing going on in our world right now. And again, Nikola Tesla's at the heart of it. We have a literal current war, just like the movie Current War, Tesla versus Edison from the turn of the last century, playing out in front of us with the two companies, just like the title of the video indicates. Nikola out of Phoenix, Arizona, and Tesla out of Silicon Valley. And I wanted to bring this meme up to spark some critical thinking in here because, again, we're looking at steganography, and I find it incredibly interesting that the current war is playing out right before us again in this time, 100 years after it did before. And we talked last time about the hit piece that Tesla did on Nikola. Nikola fired back. There have been more things that have happened since I commented on this in the last video, again at the end of this. And there is no more speculation that I'm going to do on this story because it's hurting my brain too much to keep up with it. There's so much else going on in the world that clearly, because the lambda exists in Nikola's logo, as I've shown so many times, because it is part of this current war theme, there's something happening with this company, in my opinion, as it relates to the new technology paradigm that will be given. Given is a strong word, too. Part of the deployment and the rollout of this is a controlled demolition of the old system. So there's plenty we're going to go through today, but like I also do over here on the Patreon side of things, we're going to get into the TikTok story a little bit and what it has to do with the Oz novel. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a taste of what we've been doing over on Patreon for a bit. I did just post, by the way, the primer video for the series that I'm going to be starting over there on Patreon. I'm going to be recording another video, posting it by tomorrow, so we'll get another video for the patrons in by the end of the month. You get a bang release schedule there because, again, I intended to post a couple of more times this month, but got tied up with Theta. So, and again, that's where you can find me. I'm doing a lot of live streams over on Theta on a daily basis now. You can find me on Skullcap Savant, but there's no space in between Skullcap Savant over on Theta. It's just Skullcap Savant, all one word. But since all back to the Nikola Tesla meme and keeping ourselves grounded in reality here is all I mean to say with this. There's plenty to pick apart relating to where we're headed. I'm going back through all of these headlines that I shared from last time, and it's GM. For those just coming to the video, GM is worked on getting a deal signed with Nikola Tesla to be a partner to build the truck I just showed you, the Badger. And all of this goodwill and good news with their partnership with Anheuser-Busch and them selling routes, their business model being selling routes, not selling vehicles, it casts some casts some doubt into how to gauge this situation, because also in my opinion, we can't treat Nikola or Tesla, either company, like car companies. We have to treat them more like software companies. And this is the whole thing in the investment realm of whatever is happening between these people that are heading up this company, Trevor Milton, who's no longer at Nikola, and of course Elon Musk over at Tesla. And it's more of a microcosm for the factions at war with each other, right? This is playing out just like the political elections are playing out right now. And we're going to get into that today too, because China is heavily involved with a lot of a lot of the diversion in the corporate realm relating to the TikTok app. And so we're just gonna dive in here, guys. We're gonna come back around to this meme throughout the rest of the video, because the current war with the themes of China, TikTok, the current the Nikola versus Tesla, Nikola Tesla's technology, the new space paradigm. Like I said, I engineered into this video here what we're gonna talk about. But first, one of my patrons, Chris, sent me this video that kind of sums up, through some V-steganography, as we will see, where we are headed in this vast ocean. So this is a PlayStation ad. PlayStation 5 is coming out, and I have also done a video decoding the PS5 lately at the end of June on my Patreon channel, and how the PS5 and all the things relating to the games that are coming out have to do with the Wedico virus, overcoming our shadow, how that relates to the overcoming the mind control and the V-steganography that's embedded in captivating the senses. This brilliantly paints a picture of all of that, but also alludes to the space paradigm we're heading into. I'll just let this play out. This originally posted on September 14th, so a couple weeks ago at this point. Thanks, by the way, Chris, for this. Notice the blue. The blue you see is a similar shade of this blue. Does that have an effect? I don't know. But what I do know is that the blue chakra, your throat chakra, relating to speech, is highlighted here. It's the central color to the PlayStation brand as well, so that has something to do with this as well. To the other themes. If you guys notice, you've got some spaceships here. This is the main point of V-steganographies. You've got pentagram-shaped spaceships. V-steganography, 5. Of course, going back to the Earth Grid Parasite Network and Death Stranding, which I will be finishing this game out, streaming on Theta, like I've told people. There's another lesson to be had here, to be rehashed as we're going into this new space world, but this has something to do with the veil, right? There's some sort of a barrier here that everybody's coursing toward. If anybody's seen The Truman Show, very similar to the meme or the scene, not the meme, but the scene in The Truman Show, where he realizes that he's living inside of a bubble, and he gets to the literal wall of that bubble to step out into the real world. So behind this blue barrier relating to the heart chakra, what are we doing here on these platforms? We're speaking our truth. Freedom of speech. It's what's being quashed. But if we can get beyond this barrier of freedom of speech and into the unknown, past the 5 senses, then we'll truly unlock what the future has in store for us, right? And if you notice, you have these, what have we been talking about on the channel too? But we've been talking about the samurai meme. These last 3 videos, discounting the Theta channel update. But we've been talking about how the Asian history, both with the Mongols and Japan and ancient samurai in Japan, leaves something to be desired as it relates to the truth. Then it points to the fact that, look at this. This person's digital emotions are stored, and dormant underneath them, underneath the interface, is the person, right? But this exists behind the barrier. To me, this says that the people living behind the barrier of freedom of speech, freedom of the throat chakra, however you describe your expression, right, to bring creativity out into the realm, into the physical realm, that is, that everyone behind this veil has a propensity to act out their fake emotions on screen, digitized, right? What's to say that when we all break through this barrier, this need to cast out an interface of our fake personas goes away? I'll let the video continue, but that's kind of what I saw in this scene here. Again, with the V-steganography, the spaceships. And then they go out into space. Beyond the veil is space. So we're going from ocean, ship technology. This also has, I think, the inclusion of so many different types of sea-bearing vessels has a lot to do with the investment economy in the future too. Not only are we going to space, but the oceanographic industry here on planet Earth is also about to explode, because it's also the other frontier that we haven't explored. So I think not only in the realm of preparing the masses, especially the young generation that are in this PlayStation realm, getting them out beyond this digital environment and into the real world, into the space paradigm, is where we're going. And I don't think anything more of this situation at this point than that. I recognize the V-steganography dormant within it, right? Recognize that Tesla his very name is being bastardized to carry out a meme with a current war. And I recognize that we don't have the ability to see through to the truth when things... because when a conspiracy term like Hindenburg for the research firm is used, whole conspiracy behind that, and behind the Hindenburg incident itself, and keeping Tesla's technology away from a burgeoning ethos among Americans that airships were the next big thing, this brand new technology. It's to say that a distraction event happens to keep us away from influencing our own future with the best technology that's available to us. And these are all the hallmarks that I see playing out in front of us. The stories just keep pouring in. I'll go through these stories. Since we last talked, the feud has continued between Nikola and the company Tesla, going back and forth, blaming each other for various grievances. Tesla's been on the offensive, in particular, against Nikola ever since the Hindenburg scathing hit piece that suggests their trucks weren't powered by their own power or by their own electricity. They were using momentum to move the truck, in a press video from 2017, which was actually admitted to be true by Trevor Milton, the CEO of Nikola himself, and that certain things relating to their design. Reportedly, they bought their design instead of saying that they did it in-house. So these are the scathing hit pieces. It's interesting to me because on the surface, none of this stuff matters. Like, at the end of the day, they have a product now that works, and Nikola's business model is not selling electric cars; it's selling routes for the electric cars to go to travel across. It's a different business model than people realize. It's not a car company competing with a car company. It's a fuel cell refilling station and physical delivery route company, by which the technology that they bring to the table makes the route that much more valuable because it makes the costs predictable. This is why Anheuser-Busch and Ryder and GM and companies like that saw a prime opportunity to partner with Nikola. Now that it's getting some bad press through propaganda, GM's still having to say, we will work to close the Nikola deal after Trevor Milton resigns. The thing is Trevor Milton handled the situation very poorly. He took things personally, went to Twitter, and it may end up being detrimental for his company, unless it's part of a script, unless Trevor Milton's supposed to act this way, was told to act this way by somebody. I have no idea. I have no idea what's happening there. But I do, again, like I stated already in the video, question whether or not Nikola and Tesla both are seen as software companies, not car companies. Because in the software realm, the fake it till you make it meme is how things go. You launch a product, you have people beta test it, and then you fix the bugs. Okay? That can't happen when you're deploying things like cars, but somehow because they're not seen as a software company, Tesla in particular, and their self-driving assessments, they're not looked at as a car company in that capacity. They're looked at as a software company. We give them free passes to kill people, basically, because the software is not good enough. Oh, it's all part of the beta test. Okay? So where's the double standard here? Like, if this is part of Nikola's beta test, and we already look at Tesla as a software company, not a car company, why are those same standards not being used to gauge against Nikola as well? These are the things that were the dirty politics of the day in the original current war with Nikola Tesla versus Edison. Edison had more corporate funding behind him, was the difference. He had government subsidy behind him, was the difference. Just like our friend Elon Musk. So this is a faction war, is how I see it on the surface, and it points to the larger goal that we all have for humanity in reaching space. So anyway, this is kind of the update. This is a developing story. The main point and course for this whole thing, however, is that we are being diverted away from looking at what's truly happening behind the scenes. That's what it tells me. The very fact that Nikola is not being looked at as a software company, apples to Tesla. The main fact that there is propaganda on the top of this. The very fact that there doesn't seem to be any fundamental analysis happening, only technical analysis happening with price valuations and things like this. This Nikola company is not a boondoggle. That's what I hope everybody sees. They're doing regular stuff that companies do. Oh, we licensed design technology from another company. Okay. We didn't disclose that, but whether or not we disclosed it or not, it has no bearing on the actual product that's being manufactured. I don't get it. I could go on a diatribe all day about how this whole argument doesn't make sense in a sound business environment. Thus, it just proves the fact that we don't have a sound business environment. Speaking of unsound business environments, that brings us to, of course, the secondary player in all of this, China, because the United States is in a Cold War with China. I just got done going through this book also, Feeding the Dragon, by Chris Fenton. It is, it's interesting. I think, based on his life experience, Chris was a Hollywood guy. Worked for, what was the name of his firm? DMG, that's right. DMG Entertainment. Helped bring out movies for the Disney Corp, for the Marvel movies to launch in China. They weren't launching in China prior to maybe 10 years ago. China didn't show any United States movies. They were starting to get really big into the NBA after the Yao Ming situation with the Houston Rockets, being the diplomat to connect the NBA over to China, who loved their basketball. Business began to churn in popular culture arena between the two countries for the first time in a very long time. It was pre-Maoist China that this stuff since this stuff had occurred. But but Chris Fenton, working in Hollywood, talks about how Hollywood, Silicon Valley, the NBA, all of these industries rather, were being used as ways to connect to China and supply more of a market for products that had become saturated in the United States, products like the NBA. They were having a tough time getting new fans, getting new revenue streams. This is why the NFL, too, wanted to go to London. They wanted to do all these international games because they saturated their market. The incremental advertising dollars weren't getting them any more money. So from a business perspective, it made a lot of sense. Of course, there are ulterior motives when you get the NBA, Hollywood, Silicon Valley involved with business dealings in China. You start to get things like what we're going to talk about today, magic software being installed in the back door of everyone's phones that's a teenager to the tune of TikTok. Things like this. Things like Huawei and the 5G situation and the 5G technology war going on between manufacturing in China and manufacturing in the United States. Who remembers back when the COVID-19 stuff was happening and Huawei was kicked out of the country? Just like they're talking about kicking out TikTok from the country and banning that app, which we're going to get to in a second. All I mean to say is about this book is Chris has a very specifically painted perspective because he was in Hollywood. And I think he's kinder in his words about the CCP than I don't think he's as objective as he could be about the CCP. I think he's a little bit, because he necessarily made a living over there for a while and had to partner with the CCP in certain ways to put productions and stuff on, it would behoove him not to speak poorly of anything. And I truly don't think he feels that way anyway. But I think his perspective is short-sighted on that, because what it does show is the propensity for things like this to happen, which we're going to go through in a second as well, because also since we've spoken last, Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings have become a topic of a lot of the major headlines leading into the debates tomorrow, and the money grab that has gone on in hooking up specific business interests to specific parties in China to allow for these backdoors and such to occur, and just how much money was in it for the man to do it. But before we get to that, the current war situation as it comes out with Huawei is talking about entering into the electric car market themselves. Anything Tesla can do, we can do. So just another hallmark of the current war situation as it extends to China, and really what we are looking at in terms of how companies like Huawei could have gotten their hands on technology. China is the ultimate conspirator for copycat engineering. They don't build anything initially themselves, typically. They go buy other schematics and figure out how to make it better, faster, cheaper. The better piece is a wink wink, right? Because they cut corners everywhere everywhere in the manufacturing process that they can. But this is probably an artifact itself of this story, is why I kind of couple them together, because where is the prowess to put in the technology like they are doing in a car market? Like they're even using on a Porsche. They've got self-driving mechanisms. Again, though, software company, not car company, software company. But anyway, the National Review did an article. This is all over the web. This isn't the only spot you can find this, but it was highlighted over the past week or so after an investigation. I think it was a Senate report detailed that Hunter Biden is definitely involved in overseas relationships. Ukraine is what everybody has been talking about, but as I will show, that business relationship extends to China, and millions have been proven in these documents to have been funneled directly to his organizations. Who knows how many of those dollars he kept himself, but there are other reports out there that paint a picture of billions of dollars being passed. Many billions. And this is what I currently subscribe to the truth on as well, is that there's much more to the story that we will probably find out about even after tomorrow when the debates transpire. But what does this have to do with space? That's what we're going to investigate. Well, it has more to do with China than space, this particular story. But Says here, Hunter Biden received millions of dollars from foreign sources as a result of the business relationships that he built during the period when his father was vice president of the United States. So we're specifically talking about the period where the Obama administration, right? He also pursued business dealings with politically connected Russian, Chinese, and Kazakh nationals. He partnered with Chinese businessmen connected to Chinese Communist Party and the People's Liberation Army. There you go. I mean, on face value in and of itself, that statement doesn't say much, but I'm just pointing to it. He took cash from the wife of the corrupt former mayor of Moscow, and he sent funds to Ukrainian and Russian nationals living in the U.S. that are linked to what appears to be the Eastern European prostitution or human trafficking ring. And this has been speculated on for a long time because of how dirty his dad is, too. So this is what the Senate report kind of garnered. Not really a ton of surprise, but there's your kind of emphasis on the summary of what's going on. As it relates to, then they go and they detail his relationships with Russia. I'm just skipping straight to China for what's relevant here. As far as the Chinese relationship goes, a Boston-based Thornton LLC provided cross-border capital intermediary services and counts a number of state-owned Chinese businesses among its clients, according to its website. This is the one that Biden used as well. So you're working with the same company under the same LLC that can funnel funds directly to your Chinese interests. Interesting. And it may or may not be significant that it's based out of Boston. I'll get to that in a second. Through this company, Hunter Biden was introduced to the CCP elite and those businesses who operate with their blessing. So, here's where the figure that was at least disclosed was that $4.8 million was funneled directly to Biden's law firm over the following year of the business relationship being set up. So, again, how much of this was actual direct deposit into like his pocket? I don't know. How much money was actually passing between the companies at like an international settlement level? You don't know that either. That's where the speculations of these billions of dollars are starting to come in, where analysts that are smarter than I am are a lot like Mark Skidmore and the FASB 56 crowd, that kind of research. They're looking into the real numbers, and we'll have some better reporting on this topic come out pretty soon, and we'll cover it when that happens. But keep your eye out. The big things about the debate being tomorrow, the space tech future being unveiled, the current war heating up, China being at the heart of it. We've also had reports out of the defense secretary stating China, Russia have weaponized space. We already know this, though. This isn't a surprise to us. We're not necessarily surprised by any of it because of the tapestry this all paints, like I said, that get us to space. So this was an article at the Epoch Times. This is behind a subscription wall, by the way. I forgot to log into it here, but I was only sharing the headline with this anyway. If you have a subscription to the Epoch Times, you can I'll link this in the description. You can go read that. But that leads us to what the hell is happening with TikTok. Because this is where really the story that will captivate us over the next month or so, all the way through the election, will be this. And it is a Wizard of Oz drama. As we've shown in the Patreon side, TikTok is a little-known character in Wizard of Oz lore. This is him. That's TikTok. He's a round robot. He can be wound up, be very useful, be told what to do. But, as the story goes, he is controlled in this little novella kind of side story by the Gnome King. And the Gnome King is the caricature that embodies the archetype of who's winding up the man, the TikTok man. He's winding up the machine to go off in the direction that he's going in to perform his duties. So in this same way, TikTok being a Chinese company lends itself to be controlled by the Gnome King. And the Gnome King himself is somebody who's depicted in one of the in a Oz follow-up made by Disney in 1986, a live-action movie, in fact, which I didn't pull up here. Oz 80s 86. Nope. Wizard of Oz 1986. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, Disney. Or wait, maybe it was 1982. Nope. I'm failing here, guys. I'm failing here. Oz the Great and Powerful. Disney. TikTok. Here we go. Am I going to get there? Here he is. Woo! That was a trip. This is TikTok from the 1885 movie, Return to Oz. Sorry, that's why I got it wrong. So in the Disney version of the movie, TikTok is the main character. One of the main characters. Kind of like how the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Lion were the main companions of Dorothy. When Dorothy went back to Oz, TikTok was one of the main characters. He's a rusty copper orb-shaped machine with thin arms and clockwork features. His legs are very stout, and he speaks moving his mustache rather than his mouth. He has a round head, has bright blue eyes of light. Bright blue eyes of light. Remember what we're talking about? Blue. And what TikTok really is an expression. Remember, the app itself is, while it's not peak expression, it is expression to some degree. There's a small badge engraved in his metal plating, inscribed the role of the Royal Army. He is the entire Royal Army of Oz, which is ironic considering he's generally helpless in nature. But he is the entire Royal Army of Oz. It's an interesting statement to make, right? The app itself and the people that make up the TikTok community online are largely helpless themselves, but they are an army of mind-controlled drones, unfortunately. After the Gnome King's defeat in the movie, TikTok is cleaned up and given a golden exterior. So, the Gnome King, defeated in the novels as well, but defeated in this movie, 1985, Return to Oz. Not a lot of people know about this. But if we're talking about the gold future, the gold money reset, Bitcoin reset, gold is the theme, at least, of the Wishes and Rainbows comic book, all related to Wizard of Oz. The gold at the end of the rainbow. Somewhere over the rainbow. The song that Dorothy sings in the 1939 movie, right? These are all allusions to what we are seeing now. Make no mistake about it. There's also a song that I'm in the process of analyzing that Kesha came out with years back called TikTok, and the lyrics of which, this is an invite to patrons. If you guys want to send me a direct message on Patreon and you've looked into that song or maybe have some notes to share prior to me analyzing it on the next Patreon video, please let me know, because thoughts are always appreciated. But anyway, this is definitely, once we can rub off the copper of the Gnome King's invention, and again, like the United States, like Donald Trump's administration is attempting to do, is ban the app or rebrand it as an American-based app, the Gold app. Once it's an American-based app, the Gold reset in America, having to do with the Grand Canyon, all timed around the same riddle. These are the things I'm starting to see with it anyway. So, TikTok itself, so a couple of stories related to TikTok. There's a tapestry of stories ever since we've talked the last couple of weeks that's happening with this. So the latest is I had this screen up for a while on Complex. I'll link all these in the description. Oracle, big software database company out of Silicon Valley, lands TikTok deal after Microsoft's bid was rejected. Oracle was an interesting name to me because Oracle, as it relates to the whole riddle here, the Matrix also ties in to the whole Wizard of Oz ethos. And I started to check into some references with the Oracle as it relates to the Matrix. And as this story develops, I'll probably have more to say about that too. But the story didn't end there. Sure enough, just a couple of days later, Senator Josh Hawley urges the feds to reject the Oracle deal with TikTok. So we're back and forth, right? In this article, it states China's repressive intelligence laws, which allow the seizure of data from Chinese companies like ByteDance if the Chinese Communist Party comes knocking, still remain in force. So what he's saying is even with the merger deal, or the purchase deal, the back door of the app is still there. It's unusable, because the whole reason why we would want to get it under the umbrella of an American-based company to begin with would be so this doesn't happen. So this is the main operative point right here that they're then making, and say, okay, well, let's reject the deal. So a couple of days after that, the TikTok chief invites Facebook to join its lawsuit against the U.S. ban. So TikTok is now suing the U.S. and inviting other companies to fight back against them. Remember, Tencent is the company that owns them. ByteDance is this holding company that kind of goes over the top, but Tencent, the whole monetary reset meme with, here it is, the gold reset with the 10-cent piece and the phoenix rising from the ashes. Nikola is a company based out of Phoenix. Phoenix is the meme for burning the old in with the new. And I think those will remember back from my previous videos. Tencent, the company that owns it, owns some Q related properties. QQ.com. What's that have to do with it, right? So I'm going through these future articles for later in the video. But as the story goes, as of the 18th, we're going up through the days, there is a provision that will ban the app by November 12th, unless TikTok addresses the government security concerns that were laid out by Senator Josh Hawley previous days before. And so everybody's up in arms about how this sets a bad precedent. Oh, how could this happen? Again, how do you treat software companies? We're talking about how to treat Nikola, we're talking about how to treat Tesla and TikTok and software companies. These things move so quickly that regulation can never keep up with these things. You can't just pass regulation. We're figuring out actually as we go the constraints of the current U.S. system and the regulation that hinders progress in any sort of a way. Kind of like our friends the Vogons from the bureaucratic race from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I've talked about these guys on my last couple of Patreon videos as well, but it's all factoring in here, guys. I hope you see. This is where the V-Steganography, the Wizard of Oz riddle all becomes real fun as it's coming together in the now. So a couple days after, actually before that, I found this article actually only after everything was playing out. So this is technically, as the timeline goes, a couple of days before the first article, but in terms of the story I'm painting here, it comes best to paint what it says now. Because China itself, if the company is purchased or sold to or acquired by or whatever the proceedings end up being that TikTok gets put under a U.S. umbrella, if this happens, China may just kill the U.S. operations out of spite, right? Controversial push to force Chinese tech unicorn ByteDance to divest part or all of its smash hit TikTok social media service to a U.S.-based company could be in doubt after a report today indicated that Chinese government may oppose the transaction. Of course it's going to oppose the transaction. The Chinese government may prefer TikTok to simply shutter its U.S. operations instead of allowing it to be sold to an American company. They'd rather him remain copper than transition into gold. Will the story play out? Will the Gnome King be defeated? And will the gold exterior of TikTok be restored to a bastion of good, right? Anyway, this just reinforces the message, because this is the article I found after this one just a couple of days ago, where China's saying it will protect TikTok at all costs. More importantly, for Beijing, the case goes way beyond just mafia-style robbery of a lucrative Chinese business and cutting-edge technologies. Mafia-style robbery? What does that remind us of? The 3M faction? Remember, guys, I've been arguing the 3M, the whole meme related to the N95 masks being supplied, the Knights Hospitalier with the Red Cross, the whole mercy and comfort COVID-19 ship ritual. One of them parked in LA, one of them parked in New York. I've been arguing that the faction war, we've got the Fox faction having to do with technocracy, Hollywood, sports, Wall Street, Silicon Valley, right? These guys are all in the Democratic backing, and then the 3M faction is on the other side backing the Trump faction, where you have the Masons, the Mafia, and the military. 3M. Also V-steganography and the letter M, which I'm going to go to in a future video on Patreon, but between the two pillars of Boaz and Joachim in Freemasonry. Of course, the Knights Hospitalier, the Templars, these are all Masonic orders. Masons, Mafia, military. Mafia has a very, tight-knit, secret type of structure as it relates to themselves as well. Where did I put that story? Here it is. But I just wanted to pointing out that the mafia-style robbery, so the mafia is requisitioning that for part of the military and Masons faction to take this app out of the hands of their enemy. So just pointing to the things that are happening here, guys. This is just a lot more of the same language that you're hearing in all the articles about this whole thing. But anyway, as it goes, why was Boston important too? If you guys remember, I pointed out. Which article was it? Was it the New York Post? Nope. Doesn't matter. Oh, Hunter Biden. I remember. Hunter Biden was using the Boston. This is where I was coming in. Thornton LLC. So this was curious to me because we've also been talking about the digital dollar. Okay, so changing topics. People should recall back to previous videos where I was looking at the Boston Fed, exploring the tech benefits and trade-offs of the digital dollar, looking into a bunch of new technologies to pave the way for this golden future that we have, the Bitcoin future, the gold in the Grand Canyon to be unveiled. Some sort of digital backing happening out of all of this. Boston is the center for all of this to be all of this activity to be managed from, it would seem. Managed is probably the appropriate word. That the Boston Fed is they're kind of lording over this transition process, I would say. They're the ones that made the Wishes and Rainbows comic book, the original Road to Ruta comic that Bix Weir has done such a brilliant job of decoding himself. So with this happening, we also have, just the other day, expected monetary overhaul where the Fed is preparing to deposit digital dollars to each American. So how would this get set up? But through a distributed ledger system. Not necessarily blockchain, but distributed ledger. Let's hope that they go with blockchain as well and tie it to Bitcoin. If they tie it to Bitcoin, it's game over. If they tie it to anything else, the story continues. Bitcoin is the savior for the sound money future. So we'll see how it plays out. But this all has to do with the TikTok battle, because all alongside this TikTok ban that was going to be put in place by November 12th has gotten a stay of execution because of some late night argument or an hour and a half long session on the floor yesterday, and some late night arguing that led to the judge presiding over the case ruling that there's more to talk about related to this ban. So we've got the election, the TikTok situation, the current, the entire current war meme is playing out and spilling out into the arena of everyone's consciousness more than they realize. Have the lens of Wizard of Oz, and you will know that you are being had. is what I want everybody to know. There's another Bill Bonner diary. He's one of my favorite bloggers that I want everybody to read about the sinking dollar, the velocity of money coming to a crawl because of COVID-19, and ultimately just to give yourself a good perspective on how to wrap your brain around this stuff. Because just because it's digital money doesn't mean it's good, and we'll definitely have some education that happens depending on the direction things go. Most of that's probably going to be over on Theta, but over on my Theta channel. But I'll get the information out there. Anyway, more things that are Fox related. This was something that came out that I thought was just too perfect to leave out. I couldn't find a way to tie it into any of the other topics today, but it's a Fox V-steganography hit. Fox Faction V-steganography hit. So people may have seen this story where YouTube was sued by one of their content moderators that works there at YouTube, whose job it is to process the videos and weed out any potentially sensitive material. The problem is they're subject to the sensitive material that they're watching, which includes bestiality acts, beheadings, like really, really disturbing crimes involving babies, really, really bad stuff. So one of the things that they were suing about, though, was a fox being skinned alive. I thought this was very curious hallmark. Why would this, among all the things they could list specifically, baby sexual abuse, rape, torture, bestiality, beheading, suicide, and homicide, they chose to highlight in the legal proceedings a fox being skinned alive as one of the specific example. College shootings, people getting run over by a tank, folks consuming things from a smashed open cranium. I get all that. That's disturbing stuff. But wait, a fox being skinned alive. Why would they include that? Fox Faction, guys. I think this is a move by the Fox Faction in some way to probably tune laws and regulations in their favor. Knowing about how all this regulatory BS is happening around TikTok in particular, it's all about regulation. The thing is in the space world, in space tech future, regulations slow things down. Fox Faction does not want space tech future. They want more regulation. So to me, the motive of this is quite simple and quite clear. Put lawsuits like this into place so we can lobby for more regulation in all sorts of different arenas and just make it really hard for people to have what? An open throat chakra, as it all comes back to going into the space tech future. So what else is happening in space? Well, there's this other Artemis plan I've made people wise to mine the moon by 2024. Send the next man to the moon. What does 2024 line up with? Patrons are going to be familiar with this. The next solar eclipse that's going to pass over the United States. Something between 2017 and 2024 of great tribulation is happening. A 7-year period, come have you, where we're going to have 2 complete solar eclipses pass over the United States. Very rare events in and of themselves. Not exactly, but 7 years removed from each other. Go watch my alchemy series. 1, 2, 3, 4 videos on YouTube. Culminating in a lot of these topics I'm discussing that are iffy for the YouTube algorithms themselves because of these very content moderators that we're talking about. But this is about 10 hours worth of content, guys. This, and this, where I actually decode a lot relating to this very 7-year spread that I'm alluding to between these 2 events. But as it relates to the moon in 2024, Artemis planning to mine the moon. What do you need if you're going to mine the moon? You need a digital currency to ledger it because it's not actually ledgered. You need something that's not a monetary gold or silver in order to ledger this stuff. So this is all connected also with this by 2024 plan to have a cryptocurrency standard set up. So if we start mining asteroids, I don't think the moon is mineable, by the way. That doesn't mean that they won't tell you that the new gold that they're getting is coming from the moon. I think a lot of it's just really coming from the plain old Grand Canyon, as we know. But taking the gold from the Grand Canyon and saying they're having success mining the moon is one way to make it palatable to the public that all of this gold is rushing in all at once. And I also look at the V steganography just in the Artemis plan, sending their first woman to space to land on the moon. Not to space, but the first woman to land on the moon. The lambda, the moon having everything to do with women's menstrual cycles, and the blood of the menstrual cycle streaming through the opening in the legs. This has to do with the hijacking of the divine feminine itself. This has to do with the Venus brittle. This has to do with much. So we're going to keep our eyes out on this one too, because there's a lot just happening here in the symbology and the steganography of the logo itself, right? The Artemis plan. Make no mistake, you have a lambda, you have the moon, and then you have a blood tether connecting the moon to the earth. Very, very interesting indeed. Very interesting. That's where I'll leave that there, because we can't really dive in any further on YouTube. This is a little data map that I'm going to include, and I really recommend everybody look at. In this age of data backdoors and TikTok, I wanted everybody to see how desensitized we've become over the years to hacks. Look how much data gets hacked on a yearly basis now versus 2009, when this stuff really started to come up. This one here in 2011, speaking of Sony and PlayStation, this was the biggest one to date back then. This was a big friggin' deal. These ones in yellow are the ones that really made the news, I think. And so many people's, I think, just email addresses got stolen. And this was a really big deal. Now, you fast forward, and then the Target, people's payment data on their debit cards got stolen. This was another big deal. Home Depot was another big deal. But for the past 5 years here, they've become bigger and bigger and bigger. This is just a data map showing number of people's data, or number of people's data history logs have been stolen from various platforms over the years. And a lot of these platforms have been hacked more than once, as you'll find by coming in here. But this is a great, this website's pretty cool. They're kind of like visual capitalists. They visualize data in some pretty novel ways to make it hopefully impactful to you that this needs to matter a little bit more than it does. And people need to figure out what to do about protecting themselves, especially if we're going to go to a cryptocurrency future. We can't operate on this paradigm of trusting platforms like TikTok with literal video data, just standing in front of it, letting yourself be recorded. Who knows what else is being recorded in the background? All these like how many teenagers are walking around their parents' houses when they're gone, doing stuff that the parents don't even know, giving away secrets. The mind is boggled when it starts thinking about this. Another thing on the 5G front, another knock against the 5G. I thought I'd surface this because I'm not worried about 5G to a large capacity anymore because of stories like this that keep coming out that are probably going to prevent its installation on a very wide, coverage area. Right now, it's iffy at best. I still wonder if mass deployment of this in China by the CCP caused the cytokine storms that we saw at the advent of COVID-19. But since we don't have that propensity here in the United States, we don't have a Huawei state-controlled entity blanketing everything with this, I don't think this is really ever going to be a concern of ours, especially when you get reports like this saying that leakage, whatever that means, I think it's just pollution. It's frequency pollution is what they mean to say, is causing networks to be kicking out false reports, erroneous reports. This could also be a cover, devil's advocate, for the fact that the grand solar minimum is starting, and they will give any excuse for data modeling in weather to be off right now. We have another polar vortex coming down next month, by the way. Get ready. Right in the middle of harvest season, we've got a polar vortex coming down ready to wreak havoc on whatever crops are about to be harvested in the Midwest. and we'll see how that affects famine levels throughout the rest of the world. So anyway, this is just something. This is a marker that I wanted to point everybody to again on the 5G spectrum. And another marker that we've been talking about that I found just from the other day, September 19th, we're getting more and more articles surfacing about how long was the first millennium? Where are we in history? What year is it really? Just like Anatoly Fomenko's work. And I will tell you this, Sam Tripoli, the comedian who also has a conspiracy podcast on YouTube and other platforms, he just had somebody on to talk about Anatoly. I don't think the guy he talked to on the podcast has actually read all of Anatoly Fomenko's work, which I was suspect of, is the one thing, because he was speculating on things that Anatoly Fomenko may or may not mean that are explicitly stated in Anatoly's work, if he'd read it all. So that was weird to me, but at least they're talking about Anatoly Fomenko. We also have Vladimir Putin a few weeks ago calling out Donald Trump to say we need to rewrite history. You guys remember back in the video I did a couple months back, in fact, the Victory Day steganography episode where he wrote an article, Vladimir Putin did, calling for true history to be reestablished. We have other pieces out here. Gunnar Heinsohn's stratigraphy-based chronology. This is the final installment of a 3-part essay advocating a radical revisionism of the first millennium, just like Anatoly Fomenko. In part 1 and 2, you can link those here. This is a great series to go through. This is just his conclusion. I examined a series of fundamental problems in our standard history of the greater part of the first millennium. Here I present what I believe is the best solution to these problems. We are so used to rely on a universally accepted global chronology covering all of human history that we take this chronology as a given, a simple representation of time itself as evident, or as self-evident, as the air we breathe. It's just, in other words, we just, that's history. That must be what it is. We don't ever collectively look into these things. It's too hard to do, maybe, right? In reality, this chronology, which allows us to place with relative precision on a single time scale all major events in the histories of all peoples, is a sophisticated cultural construct that was not achieved before the late 16th century. What? What have we been arguing over here? Jesuits played a prominent role in that computation. But the main architect of the chronology we are now familiar with was the French Huguenot named Joseph Scaliger, who was just a Jesuit spy, essentially. He was an agent. He set out to harmonize all available chronicles and calendars, Hebrew, Greek, Roman, Persian, Babylonian, Egyptian. His main works on chronology, written in Latin, are De Emendatione Temporum and Thesaurus Temporum. The Jesuit Denis Patau built on Scaliger's foundation to publish his Tabulae Chronologiae from 1628 to 1657. Just like Anatoly Fomenko says, this is about the period of time that history was really fragmented. We can have probably 85% confidence in the events that are portrayed from 1700 or so forward, but from that point backward, the confidence becomes very sketchy into what we can and cannot confirm. The Jesuits went around the world murdering massive amounts of people. This is what the Fox faction's all about, the V-steganography that they hide through mind control, the senses. Remember, your mind is the 5 senses. And where was that article? Shows the true agenda for all the Fox-based media disinformation that gets thrown out there. Guys, I really recommend you read through all 3 parts of this series. He talks about Anatoly Fomenko and the 2 Romes here. So he's bringing in Anatoly Fomenko's work. And we now have more reference points with this Gunnar Heinsohn, because I hadn't looked into Gunnar Heinsohn until after reading this series, quite honestly. So, just another perspective. I really hope you guys vote, by the way, over on the Patreon page for Anatoly Fomenko, because if you also look at the poll that we did, not very many people voted for 4 people voted for history and chronology. I think this is gonna enough people voted for it to where it's a secondary topic that I really want to explore. But it's so important that we do this, guys. It has everything to do with the Wizard of Oz, and it has everything to do with what we are covering, which you voted for, the space technology. It's the precursor to all that. So anyway, I'll be I've referenced the results on this enough. Again, I'm going to be taking this down off the Patreon board. The results have been posted for well over a week, I think, and I've saved the results. Everybody knows at this point who's over there on Patreon what we're going to cover coming up. I'll run some check-in polls at some point in the future too. But boy, woo! Markers are hitting, guys. We're on a roll. I mean, everything we've been talking about on this channel since the beginning of the year is manifesting in some way, continually. The clues keep coming. It's a continued investigation, and again, the conclusions that we're drawing are probably altogether somewhat incomplete until the whole picture plays out. But we're on the right track. I think, as evidentiary markers would point at, we're on the right track with this stuff. So with that, like I said, there's going to be another Patreon video I do by tomorrow. It'll be posted for those patrons, so you get yet another one before the end of the month. I encourage everybody that is a patron that hasn't watched the original post I did the other day that focuses around, this is the video I did that focuses around the concepts of the V-Nous, the mind control, the space technology, and what concepts we will cover. The next videos are going to get into the actual research and the books and excerpts to paint the picture more clear for you guys. So that's it for now. I love you all. I hope that you guys join me over in my Theta channel. That, unlike Patreon, that's actually free if you catch me over there and follow me under Skullcap Savant. Let me see if I can go there here. Just a sec. Theta.tv. And manage my channel. Here it is. Skullcap Savant. Right here. As you can see, it is with no spaces. Skullcap Savant with no spaces. And you can follow me over on this side when I stream some of the upcoming research that I'm going to be doing. I've been actually streaming Dragon Ball Z episodes over there as I do live research. I'm going to be getting back into live research on video games and live research reading books as well. Those might be more boring for people. I'll attempt to do some cool stuff with the graphics that are relevant to the content that I do read through, but I really, really want to read through kind of like story time, the whole Wizard of Oz novel series, which is 15 books, the Alice in Wonderland series and such, because it'll give us a better perspective to pick out the cipher, the V cipher in those novels as it relates to the rest of our work. So anyway, guys, that's it. Like I said, I love you all. I know I kind of said this a couple of minutes ago, but now I'm really closing out. Talk to you soon, and expect another current war update here over on YouTube within the next couple of weeks too. Take it easy.